We've got Little Bluestem in a different field. It's not supposed to be here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna transplant some of it, keep it as ornaments. We want to show you how to do that today. Here, I've just dug it up, got almost all the roots. You obviously want to beat off some of the dirt, and then whatever you do after this, you want to keep it watered real well. Peyton, what time is it?
I don't know, bro.
It's lunchtime.
You ready to go?
Sure, man.
All right, now it's transplant time.
So Carol kind of showed me earlier this morning how we wanted to do what you just saw. So now Peyton and I, there he is, are headed back out to actually do the work while Carol harvests Indian grass. Let's see if she starts this time. Wow, beautiful.
Sounds like we need to do.
So this is the Little Bluestem field, one of them. And it is getting into this field, which was stiff goldenrod, but then we cut it down because we have a different field of stiff goldenrod that's doing better and we want to replace it. And we're about to spray the field, but before we spray it, we want to go in and pull out as much of the Little Bluestem as possible because it's beautiful and it can be used ornamental. So. So look at this. This is what you want them like. You want the main bulbous part of the root on here, but you can take a lot of the little frill things off, and you don't need anything from the top because that's all going to die off. You just need the bulbous part of the root.
Hey guys, here's a close-up of the Little Bluestem. You can see a lot of greens and purples in here. You can see a lot of greens and purples in here. It's actually called Little Bluestem because the guy who named it was colorblind. Fun fact for you.
That makes 50, the rest go to Carol. We threw them all in a pile here, as you can see, and the reason we did that is we're not actually gonna get to transplanting them until tomorrow. So we're gonna wet them down tonight, and them being in a pile is gonna kind of hold the moisture, help them hold, because they've gotta stay wet or those roots are not gonna be able to take the shock that they just went through. So for the first bit of this transplant, it's actually going in front of my house. We're here at Knoxville Farm and Home, and we are gonna get some soil. Shop local. So do I go for the manure blend or the topsoil? I picked topsoil. All right, we made it to my house. You might be wondering why I left the grass on the top of some of those bulbs, and that is because I got lazy when we were out in the field and I quit chopping them off. So don't do that. Right along here, there, and then in front, that's where we're gonna put our Little Bluestem. Say hi to my wife.
Hi, my wife.
My wife is actually putting in the plants. I dug all the holes as you saw. I don't know if you can tell, but they're not that wide. They're maybe 6 inches wide, but they're 6 to 8 inches down. And you really, I can't stress this enough, you gotta get them deep. If you don't get them deep, they're gonna die. And you gotta get them covered in soil, and you want the mounded soil. Again, you want the mounded soil because when you're watering it every day and the soil starts to compact, if it squishes in too much because you don't have enough soil and it becomes too thin of a layer above the roots aren't gonna make it through the winter. You don't get this, you don't get transplanting. So the first week, at least, maybe 2, every time you water them, you want it to be really soaked. So what I just did is I went through half of it and then I went back. Then because what it'll do is the top will look really wet, but it actually takes, 30 seconds or so for it to start seeping down into the roots. So I went through it, got it wet, and then when it was starting to seep down, then I drenched it even more to make sure that it was actually wet. It wasn't gonna dry out just on top of the soil. You might be wondering, what the heck are you doing about the lawn grass? Here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna do anything until next spring. Next spring, lawn grass, fescues, Kentucky bluegrass, stuff like that, that is going to be a cool season grass. It's gonna come up a lot earlier, sometimes, March in Iowa. And so when it's coming up and it's greening, Little Bluestem, dead as could be. Little Bluestem's not gonna be peeking around till May. So what we do is right in March, when the grass starts to green up and rear its green head, you give it that area a spray. So we'll just spray this area with Roundup. And that's gonna kill everything that's growing there at the time, but the Little Bluestem won't be around. And Roundup actually doesn't leave a ground residue. You don't have to worry about it like 2,4-D or some of the others. So you can spray it with Roundup, should be totally fine. If you spray in the early season, it gets rid of any of the grass. You don't have to worry about the rest. Just a heads up, the potting process, if you're wanting to transplant into pots, is actually a little bit different, but it is 6 o'clock. I'm ready for dinner and we'll get that tomorrow.
I'm itchy. I'm very itchy. But that could be the poison ivy I got into yesterday.